The 19-18 game on November 22, 1950. The Fort Wayne Pistons defeat the Minneapolis Lakers in a game that finishes with the lowest score in NBA history, 1918. The abysmal scoring is not an accident, but a deliberate strategy, as the Pistons decide their only path to victory against the dominant Lakers is to stall. For long stretches of the game, Fort Wayne players simply hold the ball for minutes at a time, refusing to shoot, a perfectly legal, if mind-numbing, tactic. This decision completely neutralizes the Lakers' offensive advantage, or results in an unwatchable product for the 7,021 fans in attendance. The crowd boos relentlessly, and contemporary media reports universally describe the event as a farce. That exposes a fundamental flaw in the league's structure. This single game becomes a notorious symbol of professional basketball's critical problem. In the early 1950s, where teams can stall indefinitely without penalty, because the rules permit this strategy, the game's pace slows to a crawl, driving away fans and threatening the league's commercial viability. The 19-18 score provides the ultimate proof that the NBA is fundamentally broken, as its existing rules actively discourage the very scoring and competition fans pay to see. This stalling tactic is often employed specifically to counteract one dominant player, who is already forcing the league to reconsider its core geometry, the Lakers' 6 feet 10 inches centerpiece. George Mikan. George Mikan. The league's first true problem is George Mikan, a 16 inches giant who fundamentally warps the game's mechanics with his sheer size. Mikan's dominance for the Minneapolis Lakers is so absolute that it forces the league to legislate against his physical advantages. Even before the BAA formally becomes the NBA, his ability to interfere with shots near the basket leads the NCAA, and subsequently the pros, to ban goaltending in 1944. This rule, which prohibits players from touching a shot on its downward trajectory, is a direct response to centers like Mikan simply swatting away any attempt near the rim. His presence completely negates traditional offensive strategies, forcing the competition committee to intervene. Mikan's influence on the rules continues as he leads the Lakers to 5 championships in 6 years, and his post-play renders the existing court dimensions obsolete. He operates within a narrow 6-foot lane, an area he completely controls, the shot clock. The league is facing an existential crisis from stalling tactics. So Syracuse Nationals owner Danny Biasone proposes a radical solution during a 1950 for owners meeting. He calculates that a fast-paced, fan-friendly game should feature roughly 120 total shots, or 60 per team, to keep spectators engaged. Biasone famously scribbles the math on a napkin. A standard 48-minute game contains 2,880 seconds. And when that duration is divided by 120 shot attempts, the result is 24 seconds. This simple calculation gives birth to the 24-second shot clock, an innovation designed specifically to eliminate the deliberate stalling that plagued the sport. The league, desperate for a fix after the 19-18 game, agrees to implement the new rule immediately. The NBA adopts the 24-second shot clock for the 1950-55 season, and the impact is immediate and transformative. League-wide scoring averages, which had cratered at just 79.5 points per game in the 1953-54 season, instantly jumped by 13.6 points to an average of 93.1 points per game. This rule change forces teams to abandon their slowdown strategies and adopt a continuous, faster style of play, which in turn dramatically improves the spectator experience. This is arguably the single most important rule change in basketball history. The shot clock effectively saves the league from commercial failure by ensuring a more dynamic offensive product. This new high-possession environment creates the perfect conditions for the next generation of dominant, athletic centers led by Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain's arrival presents the NBA with a problem that eclipses even George Mikan, culminating in the statistical anomaly of the 1961-62 season. In that single campaign, Chamberlain averages an unprecedented 50.4 points and 25.7 rebounds per game, numbers that effectively break the competitive structure of the sport. This incredible output, which includes his famous 100-point game, signals to the league that the existing rules are insufficient to manage his athletic superiority. The panic among owners is palpable, as Chamberlain's dominance threatens to make the game a one-man show. The NBA is forced to consider redrawing the court to contain a single player. For the second time in its history, in 1964, the league legislates its most direct response, once again altering the court's physical dimensions by widening the lane from 12 feet to 16 feet. This change is specifically implemented to push Chamberlain further from the basket, increasing the difficulty of his post-up offense and limiting his ability to dominate the area directly beneath the hoop. Simultaneously, the NBA also institutes a ban on offensive goaltending, which prohibits players from tipping in a shot that is on or directly above the rim. This rule is a direct counter to Wilt's common practice of hovering over the basket and guiding teammates' missed shots into the hoop. By containing Chamberlain's interior presence with a 16-foot lane, the NBA solidifies its physical, post-centric style of play. This focus remains the standard until a rival league, the ABA, introduces a perimeter innovation that will revolutionize the game's geometry again. The ABA merger. In 1976, the NBA officially absorbs its rival league, the American Basketball Association, bringing in for new franchises the Denver Nuggets, Indiana Pacers, New Jersey Nets, and San Antonio Spurs. Along with these teams, the merger introduces one of the ABA's signature innovations to the established league, the three-point line. The NBA, however, initially views the long-distance shot as a gimmick rather than a serious strategic tool, delaying its implementation for 3 full seasons. Finally, the league approves the three-point line for the 1979-80 season, redrawing the court and offering a new offensive dynamic. On October 12, 1979, Boston Celtics guard Chris Ford makes history by sinking the first official three-pointer in the league's new era. Despite its introduction, the three-point shot is met with significant resistance and skepticism from the league's coaches and established players. Most statisticians believe games are still won in the paint, not from 23 feet away. This institutional reluctance is clearly reflected in the data, as teams across the league attempt an average of only 0.8 three-point shots per game. During that 1979-80 season, the shot is treated as a last-second heave or specialist-esque novelty, rather than a foundational part of an offense. Because the perimeter shot is so heavily discounted, the game's focus remains squarely on physical, interior play, which soon escalates into the brutal defensive tactics of the Bad Boys Pistons. The Bad Boys in the late 1980s, the Detroit Pistons, led by their core enforcers Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahern, and Dennis Rodman, popularized a style of defense built on extreme, intimidating physicality. This strategy becomes famously known as the Jordan Rules, a specific team-wide plan designed to stop Michael Jordan by aggressively fouling him and challenging him physically on every possession. The unofficial motto of this era becomes no blood, no foul, as referees permit a level of contact that blurs the line between hard defense and outright assault. This escalation in brutality forces the league office to recognize that a common foul is no longer a sufficient deterrent for contact designed to injure or intimidate. As a direct response to this escalating violence, the NBA formally institutes the Flagrant Foul designation in 1990. This new rule empowers referees to penalize unnecessary or excessive contact far more severely than a simple personal foul. For the first time, the league officially codifies the concept of intent into its rulebook. A flagrant foul 1 results in 2 shots and possession, while a flagrant foul 2, which implies malicious intent, results in immediate ejection of the offending player. This rule change is designed to curb the Pistons' most dangerous tactics by creating a significant deterrent. While the flagrant foul successfully targets excessive violence, it does not address the constant legal physicality that perimeter defenders are still allowed to use on star players, leading directly to the 1994 hand-checking adjustments. Hand-checking, Part I. Following the brutal defensive strategies employed by teams like the Bad Boys Pistons, the NBA determines that perimeter play has become excessively physical, stifling offensive flow. Although Michael Jordan, the player who most famously endured this contact, retires in 1993, the league moves forward with rule changes to open up the game for other guards. Therefore, for the 1994-95 season, the NBA officially bans the forearm check from the perimeter, making it illegal for a defender to use their arm to impede the progress of a dribbler. This rule is the first major legislative attempt to unlock offensive freedom of movement outside the paint. The change is specifically designed to clean up the game, encourage drives, and boost scoring by giving offensive players a clearer path to the basket. This rule, however, represents only a partial measure, as the new regulations still explicitly permit hand-checking and forearm contact below the free throw line extended. The immediate effect is a brief increase in scoring, but defenders quickly adapt by initiating their physical contact deeper on the floor. Because this 1994 change only addresses the perimeter, it does nothing to stop the grinding, slow-paced post play that still dominates many offensive possessions. This remaining physicality in the post allows dominant players to use their strength to back down opponents for long, drawn-out sequences, which creates the very next problem the league is forced to solve: the 5-second back to the basket violation. The 5-second rule by the late 1990s. The league's aesthetic problem has shifted from the perimeter to the post, exemplified by players like Charles Barkley and Mark Jackson. These powerful players perfected a bully ball tactic, where they would relentlessly back down defenders with their dribble, often starting from the three-point line. This strategy was effective but notoriously slow, as a single possession could consist of one player pounding the ball for 15 or 20 seconds. Fans openly expressed their frustration with this stagnant, grinding style of play, which stopped all ball movement and slowed the game to a crawl. The league recognized that this brand of isolation basketball was hurting the watchability of the product. In response, the NBA implemented the 5-second back to the basket rule starting in the 1999 to 2000 season. This new regulation states that an offensive player positioned below the free throw line cannot dribble with their back or side to the basket for more than 5 consecutive seconds. This change immediately rendered the Barkley-style 20-second back down illegal, forcing post players to be more decisive with their moves. It effectively put a timer on bully ball, demanding quicker action or ball reversal. This rule was a significant step toward unlocking offensive flow, but it was only one part of a larger league-wide problem involving stagnant, one-on-one play, which the NBA would next address by fundamentally changing its defensive philosophy. Zone is legal. Prior to the 2001 to 2000 season, the NBA operated under a complex set of illegal defense rules, which essentially mandated a form of man-to-man coverage at all times. This system was originally intended to prevent defenses from simply packing the paint and triple-teaming dominant superstars like Shaquille O'Neal without consequence. An unintended and detrimental result of this rule, however, was the proliferation of stagnant, one-on-one ESA ball that defined the late 1990s. Because defenders were forced to stay within a specific proximity to their assigned man, offenses could easily spread the floor and let one star player attack their defender in isolation. Knowing a true help-side zone was forbidden. This defensive restriction stifled ball movement, rewarded individual play over team strategy, and contributed to a slow-paced, low-scoring product. In a landmark decision effective for the 2001-02 season, the NBA completely abolished its illegal defense guidelines, thereby fully legalizing zone defense for the first time. This was a massive philosophical shift, allowing coaches to import sophisticated defensive schemes from the college and international ranks. The impact was immediate, as offenses could no longer rely on the simple isolation plays that had become so common. This single change is arguably the catalyst for the modern NBA offense. The legalization of the zone forced teams to prioritize ball movement, sophisticated spacing, and perimeter shooting to break down these complex defensive shells. While this new rule encouraged a more team-oriented offense, the league still had to contend with the controversial dribbling moves that star isolation players, like Allen Iverson, had perfected. The Iverson carry as Allen Iverson emerges as a league MVP. His signature crossover becomes a massive cultural and on-court flashpoint. The move is undeniably effective, but traditionalists and commentators insist it is an illegal carry or palming violation. They argue that Iverson's hand clearly slides underneath the ball's equator, allowing him to momentarily control and redirect it in a way that violates dribbling rules. This disagreement escalates into a cultural war, pitting the league's established fundamentals against a new, explosive street ball-influenced style. The most immediate problem is the profound inconsistency in officiating, as referees across the league struggle to apply the existing rule to such a rapid and deceptive move. Because the officiating inconsistency is creating so much weekly controversy, the NBA office intervenes ahead of the 2001 season. The league issues a formal point of emphasis on palming, which is not a rule change, but a specific directive for referees to crack down and call the violation more strictly. This move is widely seen as an attempt to regain control of the game's aesthetic and appease the traditionalist faction of fans and media. Iverson himself would famously complain about being singled out by this directive. Despite this new emphasis, the crossover proves too fast and has become the fundamental to the new generation of guards, meaning the debate and the inconsistent calls largely continue. This controversy over palming highlights the league's growing concern with its public image. and player expression, a problem that will soon explode into a full-blown crisis during the 2000 for Malice at the Palace. Malice at the Palace on November 19, 2004. A late-game altercation between the Indiana Pacers and Detroit Pistons escalates into the most infamous brawl in NBA history. After a foul and subsequent shoving match, Pacers forward Ron Artest lies on the scorer's table in an attempt to de-escalate. In that moment, a fan in the stands throws a cup of beer, hitting Artest directly, which triggers a complete breakdown of security and professionalism. Artest immediately charges into the crowd to confront the fan he believes is responsible, and several teammates follow him. This action initiates a violent, chaotic melee that spills from the stands back onto the court, involving multiple players and spectators. The fallout from the incident is swift and severe, representing Commissioner David Stern's worst-case scenario for the league's public image. Stern issues historic punishments, suspending 9 players for a total of 146 games, which results in over $11 million in lost salaries for those involved. Artest himself receives the longest non-drug-related suspension in NBA history, sitting out the remaining 73 games of the season. This event exposes massive gaps in player-fan boundaries and arena security, forcing the league to immediately author new, strict regulations. These new rules include a standardized NBA code of conduct for fans, enhanced security protocols to separate players from the stands, and new limitations on the sale of alcohol during games. The Malice at the Palace becomes the defining low point for the NBA's public relations, solidifying a media narrative that the league and its players are dangerously out of control. This public perception deeply alarms David Stern, who sees the brawl not just as a security failure, but as a critical branding crisis that threatens the league's corporate partnerships. This intense focus on repairing the league's image directly results in another highly controversial, non-basketball-related mandate the very next season. The fight in the stands directly catalyzes Stern's subsequent attempt to control player expression and professionalism through the implementation of the 2005 NBA dress code. The dress code in October 2005. Commissioner David Stern institutes a mandatory league-wide dress code, a direct and controversial response to the NBA's escalating image problem, which had culminated in the Malice at the Palace. This new policy requires all players to wear business casual attire when arriving at or departing from games, sitting on the bench while inactive, or participating in any official league or team function. The rules are highly specific, explicitly banning items like sleeveless shirts, sports jerseys, shorts, chains worn over clothing, sunglasses indoors, and all headgear, including do-rags and headbands. This mandate is a clear attempt by Stern to rebrand the league's image, control player presentation, and appease corporate partners who are wary of the league's association with hip-hop culture. The player reaction is immediate and overwhelmingly negative, as the dress code is perceived as a direct attack on their personal expression, sparking a massive culture clash. Allen Iverson, a cultural icon whose style defined the era, becomes the public face of the resistance, famously stating, "It's not who I am." Many players, journalists, and cultural critics argue the policy is implicitly racist, as it targets fashion trends specifically associated with the league's predominantly black player base. This creates a deep animosity between the players, who feel their identity is being suppressed, and the league office, which is prioritizing a more sanitized, corporate-friendly image. This intense off-court battle over professionalism and player expression dominates the headlines during the 2005-06 season, creating a clear rift between the commissioner's office and its stars, while Stern is legislating player attire to manage the league's public-facing brand. A seismic on-court shift is already underway thanks to a rule change, implemented just 1 year prior. This point of emphasis from 2004, which fully eliminates hand-checking on the perimeter, is about to unleash a new era of offensive basketball and create a new class of MVP. Hand-checking, part to the 2004-05 season, begins with a massive league-wide point of emphasis that effectively abolishes hand-checking entirely, representing a far more significant crackdown than the 1994 adjustment. This new interpretation is not a gradual change, but a fundamental rewrite of how perimeter defense can be played. Referees are now instructed to call a foul for any contact on a ball handler above the free throw line, including a simple hand check, forearm, or body bump that impedes their progress. This directive completely removes the defender's primary tool for slowing down penetrating guards, swinging the game's balance definitively toward the offense. The immediate effect of this crackdown is a league-wide explosion in scoring. and offensive efficiency, as guards now operate with unprecedented freedom. This new environment is perfectly suited for the Phoenix Suns' 7 seconds or less offense, a system built on fast breaks, pick-and-rolls, and perimeter shooting. The primary engine of this system, point guard Steve Nash, becomes the face of this new era, winning back-to-back MVP awards in 2005 and 2006. This rule change essentially legislates the modern, fast-paced game into existence. While this change makes the game faster and more watchable, it doesn't solve one specific, lingering problem that continues to make games a slow, unwatchable grind: the Hack-a-Shaq strategy. Hack-a-Shaq Shaquille O'Neal, one of the most physically dominant centers in NBA history, possesses one glaring weakness: his free throw shooting, where he records a notoriously low 50.7% success rate for his career. This statistical liability is famously exploited by coaches, most notably Don Nelson, who develops a strategy of intentionally fouling O'Neal away from the ball. Regardless of the game situation, the logic dictates that sending Shaq to the line for 2 shots, where he is statistically likely to make only 1, is a more efficient defensive possession than allowing him an easy dunk. This tactic, dubbed Hack-a-Shaq, proliferates around the league as teams adopt it to slow down their dominant opponents. The consequence for the league's product is disastrous, as games devolve into unwatchable, multi-hour free throw fests that completely stop the game's flow and frustrate fans. For years, the NBA resists changing the rule, viewing the strategy as a legitimate, if ugly, counter to a player's specific weakness. However, as the strategy expands to target other poor free throw shooters like Dwight Howard and Adrien Jordan, the league finally acts in 2016. The new rule states that an intentional off-ball foul in the final 2 minutes of any quarter now results in the offense receiving 1 free throw and retaining possession of the ball. This change makes the strategy prohibitively costly in late-game situations, effectively ending its use as a standard tactic. This rule change, of course, comes long after O'Neal's retirement in 2011, arriving far too late to save him. While the Hack-a-Shaq rule addresses a significant pace of play issue, the league soon faces a new controversy regarding defensive plays that physically endanger offensive players. The Zaza rule, a major player safety controversy, erupts during Game 1 of the 2017 Western Conference Finals between the San Antonio Spurs and the Golden State Warriors. The Spurs are dominating the game, leading by 23 points in the third quarter, when their star forward Kawhi Leonard rises for a corner jump shot. As Leonard is in the air, Warriors center Zaza Pachulia slides underneath him while closing out, leaving Leonard no safe space to land. Leonard's foot comes down directly on Pachulia's, causing a severe ankle injury that knocks him out of the game and, subsequently, the entire series. The Warriors complete a 23-point comeback to win Game 1 and go on to sweep the series for 2-0, a result many attribute directly to this single, controversial play. The incident sparks a league-wide debate about reckless closeouts and whether Pachulia's action was intentional or simply clumsy. Because the play is so consequential and highlights a clear gap in player protection, the NBA takes direct action in the following offseason. The league introduces a new point of emphasis, colloquially named the Zaza rule, which authorizes referees to issue a flagrant foul, 1 or 2 for any closeout, where the defender recklessly slides into a jump shooter's landing space. This rule shifts the defensive burden, making the defender responsible for ensuring a shooter can land safely. While this change addresses a dangerous defensive action, the league is also facing a new challenge in trying to officiate an equally controversial offensive maneuver: James Harden's unstoppable step back. The Harden step back, as James Harden evolves into one of the most prolific scorers in history. He perfects a signature step back jumper that becomes a focal point of league-wide controversy. The move is devastatingly effective, but it ignites a fierce debate among fans, media, and even officials about its legality. Critics insist the maneuver is a blatant travel, often counting what appears to be 3 distinct steps before Harden releases his shot. This argument stems from Harden's innovative use of the gather step, a move he executes with such precision that it blurs the line between a legal stop and an extra, uncounted step. To traditionalists, the move looks like a clear violation every single time. The resulting confusion leads to inconsistent whistles and forces the NBA to provide an official clarification. Due to the intense public debate and the need for officiating consistency, the NBA's league office issues a formal memo in 2018 to all 30 teams. This memorandum explicitly confirms that Harden's interpretation of the step back is, in fact, legal according to the rulebook. The league uses this memo to formally explain the concept of the zero step, which dictates that the foot on the floor during the act of gathering the ball after a dribble does not count as step one. Therefore, hardened subsequent to steps are deemed legal. Despite this official ruling codifying the move, it remains a source of constant argument among fans and pundits. This controversy over unnatural offensive moves designed to exploit rules is not limited to footwork, as players simultaneously perfect a method of swinging the ball through defenders' arms to draw fouls, forcing the league to aggress the rip-through. Elite perimeter scorers like Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Chris Paul become masters of a specific, controversial move known as the rip-through. While in a triple threat position, they wait for a defender to reach in with their arm and then deliberately swing the ball upwards through that arm to initiate contact. Because this upward motion successfully mimics the start of a jump shot, referees are consistently calling this a shooting foul, awarding unearned free throws. This provides these stars with a reliable, low-risk way to get to the line, effectively gaming the system. It was a smart, if cynical, exploitation of the rulebook. The league eventually determines this is not a legitimate basketball play, but rather an offensive baiting tactic that slows the game. Therefore, in 2011, the NBA reclassifies the move, ruling that contact from a rip-through is only a non-shooting foul. This adjustment persists for a decade until 2021, where the league launches an even broader crackdown on unnatural shooting motions. Under this new interpretation, the rip-through is re-adjudicated yet again, and it is now frequently ruled as an offensive foul, resulting in a turnover. This 2021 legislative effort runs parallel to another point of emphasis targeting players who abruptly stop to draw contact from a trailing defender. In 2021, the NBA initiates a major point of emphasis targeting non-basketball moves, a directive that quickly becomes known as the Trae Young rule. This crackdown is specifically aimed at offensive players who actively hunt for fouls. By initiating unnatural contact, such as abruptly stopping to make a trailing defender crash into them, or launching their bodies sideways or backward into a defender on a shot attempt, the league office officially defines these maneuvers as abnormal, non-basketball moves, thereby shifting the burden of the foul from the defender to the offensive player. Referees are consequently instructed to adjudicate these plays as either a no call or, if the contact is deemed significant, an offensive foul resulting in a turnover. The statistical impact of this 2021 directive is immediate, demonstrating its effectiveness in changing player behavior. Trae Young, the player most famously associated with this tactic, experiences a significant drop in his free throw attempts per game, which fall from an average of 8.7 in the 2020-21 season to just 6.3 in the 2021-22 season. This single point of emphasis forced a major adjustment from several of the league's top guards. This enforcement successfully removes one of the most controversial grifts from the game, forcing scorers to generate offense through more traditional means. While this 2021 rule addresses an exploit used by offensive players to stop play, the league simultaneously moves to eliminate a common exploit used by defensive players to achieve the same goal. The take foul emerges as one of the league's most despised and anticlimactic defensive exploits, earning the very descriptive nickname the transition killer. This specific tactic involves a defender, clearly beaten on a fast break, intentionally grabbing or bumping the ball handler to stop a developing 2-on-1 or 3-on-1 advantage. Coaches actively encourage this cynical maneuver because the resulting penalty, just a simple side-out common foul, was vastly preferable to surrendering an easy dunk or layup. While strategically sound under the old rules, this play systematically ruined the most exciting, high-speed highlight opportunities, slowing the game, and frustrating fans who wanted to see the game's stars in the open court. The league eventually determined this exploit was so detrimental to the entertainment product that it required a significant legislative change. That significant change arrives for the 2002-03 season, when the NBA institutes a new, much harsher penalty specifically to eliminate this play. Under the new regulation, if a defender commits a take foul in transition without making a legitimate play on the ball, the offensive team is now awarded one free throw and they retain possession. This elevated consequence immediately renders the take foul strategically obsolete, as it guarantees the offense a scoring opportunity plus another chance to score on the same possession. This rule change effectively legislated the cheap transition foul out of existence overnight. The impact is immediate, as fast break points jump and the overall pace of the game quickens. While this rule change successfully legislates defensive cynicism out of the game, the league simultaneously turns its attention to the offensive equivalent, the epidemic of flopping. Stop the bait.